Hi, I'm Alan Rose. Welcome to WordFest. We are recording today from the Longview Public Library. We thank them for their courtesy and for their Wi-Fi, which is far more reliable and dependable than mine is. Today we have a variety of readers. Mary Stone will be reading a book for and about tweens. PJ Peterson will be sharing with us her second mystery with Dr. Julia Fairchild. And Doin Messerschmidt, an anthropologist who spent much of his life in the Himalayas, will be sharing some of his poetry from Nepal, Bhutan, and Pakistan. Hi, Mary. Nice to have you with us again.
Hi, Alan. Thank you for having me.
Hey, you have written a new and quite different book from the first book. Can you tell us about it?
Yes, this is from the point of view of a 12-year-old girl, Janie Mulvaney, and the title is In Between Trouble, and it's kind of a double entendre. So she's not a kid, she's not a teenager, she's in between, and so those are called tween years. So not only is she in trouble, she's in between trouble all the way through the book. So she's really struggles every day.
It sounds like this is something you had fun with.
Oh, I had a ball writing this. Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us a bit more about Janie and maybe read a selection?
Yes. Janie has an older sister, Elizabeth, and Elizabeth is a thorn in her side. She has an uncle, Alvin, that is extremely embarrassing. Mom won't let her have a cell phone. Uncle Alvin continues to try to help Janie out, but it doesn't always pan out so good. It kind of backfires. And so whenever Janie tries to get ahead, oh my goodness, she just ends up in all kinds of trouble. So that's where we are. And so I will read just a short selection from episode 7. Now that's one thing about Kindle Vella is they don't call them chapters, they call them episodes. So in my book, each episode could be a standalone, but they're all connected to tell a full story through the 12 years of her life.
I see.
Her 12th year. Okay, so this is Janie talking. Good news. Dad finally agreed to let me get a dog of my own. But the bad news is that I've got to come up with some serious bucks. That'll help with the dog food, but I have to pay for everything else, shots, worms, training. I said, I can pay for training if you want me to, but I can train the dog myself. Dad rubbed that raised eyebrow that's higher than the other one between his forehead and rubbed them together. And he said, Janie, one undisciplined critter in this house is enough. Well, I was surprised that he said that about my sister, but I agreed. Anyway, my German Shepherd will be guarding the entire family. So, not just me, everybody ought to chip in. But you know what? Fairness doesn't stand a chance in this family, especially for people born last around here. I needed to earn some money. Since people always need exceptionally qualified babysitters, I took a babysitting class and put the word out that I'm available. Mrs. Heidsnecker called as soon as she heard that I was in business. Mrs. Heidsnecker's a night waitress at the Elkhorn Cafe. She's got to work somewhere. You can't be picky in Elkhorn. She asked if I could start right away because her last babysitter, old Mrs. Finley, quit without any notice at all. Mrs. Finley hadn't even worked for Mrs. Heidsnecker a whole week either. I couldn't believe anybody would pass up easy money like that. Mrs. Heidsnecker said she pays $35 for her 6-hour shift from a little before 4 to a little after 10. Well, that sounded perfect because it was right after school and it'd give me time to do my studying after her kids were in bed by 8 at the latest. I rang Mrs. Heidsnecker's bell at 3:45 on the dot, ready to go to work. My babysitting class said that you had to be on time and presentable. So I wore Elizabeth's $43 brand new blue sweater that she's so stingy with. I'd have it back in her closet before she even knew it was gone. Mrs. Heidsnecker answered the door holding her 3-month-old baby Ollie and popped the screen door open with her foot. Yelling wafted out from somewhere in the house. Mrs. Heidsnecker shifted Ollie to her hip and headed toward the noise. The door swung shut and smacked me against a screw sticking out. I examined the hole in my Elizabeth sweater. Oh, well, it was hardly noticeable. I hunted down Mrs. Heidsnecker to show her my babysitting certificate. She said it was really nice without even looking at it. She was talking and moving too fast. She rushed around while she explained that the baby had just been fed but would need a diaper changed, and that I'd have to feed him again around 08 or so, and to follow her into the kitchen so she could show me where his formula was. I couldn't help but notice the sink loaded with dollar signs. Well, actually, they were dirty dishes. But in class, they said if you do extra work, you earn a tip. And I could tell by the pile of that dirty dish, I was in for a big one, especially since Mrs. H is a waitress and knows how hard you have to work for tips. Zoe, her 4-year-old, hopped along ahead of me in her half-on, half-off socks. To impress Mrs. Heidsnecker with my safety training, I said, Zoe, you're going to trip and fall with your socks flapping around like that. Mrs. H handed me Ollie and told me Zoe was a child prodigy and that I was to read books to her, especially the new one, explaining how babies were born because Zoe was asking where Ollie came from. Oh, my face got hot. The babysitting class said nothing about teaching the facts of life. I started to tell Mrs. H about that kind of thing not being in the job description, but she still was talking 90 miles an hour and giving me instructions while Zoe tugged on my sleeve and Ollie drooled spit on my Elizabeth's slightly snagged sweater. And another kid zoomed through the house making Indy 500 noises. Mrs. H interrupted her instructions long enough to point out her 6-year-old. She said, he's a bit of a hyperactive. You'll need to keep an eye on him. Oh, this job was getting harder by the minute. They didn't say anything in class about prodigies or hyperactive kids or the facts of life. I wondered if I'd get any studying done. Mrs. H took me into her living room, which was different than her TV room. It was clean. She showed me a brand new white leather couch. She said, I've been saving my tips for a year for this. Well, almost a year. It took a couple of months off to have Ollie and 3 days off when my no good husband left. She patted the couch and said, as at first I wasn't going to buy it, but when Harold abandoned us, then I thought, well, why not? And so I cleaned out all the bank accounts so that no account loser would have to pay. And he's still paying because I garnished his checks for child support. So if he thinks he's going to get away with shirking his duties, he's got another thing coming. I'm trusting you, honey, with the responsibility of watching my children. Are you sure you can handle it? After all, when I called your house, your sister said you're only 12. Ooh, I could hardly keep up with her talking. Mrs. Heidsnecker paused and said, do not, I repeat, do not let the kids play in here, and under no circumstances are they to touch my white leather couch. She ran her hand along the flawless leather again and sighed. A whole year of backbreaking work, but it was worth it. She looked at her watch, grabbed her purse, and ran out the door. Okay, so that's I did a lot of cut and paste there, but that's essentially the first part of the chapter or the episode.
Okay, right. Hey, you're also embarking sort of on a new publishing career with In Between Trouble, something called Kindle Vella that a lot of our viewers may not know about. Can you explain what Kindle Vella is?
Yes, Kindle Vella is something that Amazon actually hasn't launched yet. I contacted them to find out when the launch date is, and they said it will be in a few months. But right now, they're accepting submissions from authors because I'm sure that when they launch, they want to have a plethora of menu for readers to choose from. But the way it works is you submit one episode at a time, and in this episode, it's kind of a standalone, but readers know that there are subsequent episodes following that. And so the nitty gritty on it is that authors will earn 50% of what readers spend on tokens used to unlock a story's episodes. Now, tokens can be purchased in a bundle of 200 for $1.99 or 1,100 for $9.99. So if you're using tokens from your 200 bundle to open one of my episodes, which we'll say is about 3,025 words, I would receive about 15 cents. If you're using tokens from your 1,100 bundle for this same episode, I would earn 13 cents. So the long of this short story here is, if you're looking to get rich, authors know that's not going to happen. But it's still a nice way for authors to get their work out there and, just have fun doing it. And, in the long run, it's probably going to cost readers about what it would cost them to buy a Kindle whole book on Kindle, but this way they can do it a chapter of it at a time. And Amazon has done a good job of setting it up so readers can respond with thumbs up or responses or whatever, so it can be an interactive kind of a thing. And then at the end of every episode, the author can put just a little blurb of what the subsequent episode is about.
So this really allows the reader on Kindle, so she could do a iPhone, I suppose, or a iPad, or the Kindle itself pad, and read through the chapters that she wants to read at that moment. I think that's really sort of a neat idea. And so I suppose, if you write one of those page turners where people are going from one episode to the next episode to the next episode, they would just keep putting another token in until they got through that. So I think that's really exciting. So have you submitted your book yet to Amazon?
Yes, I've done the first episode, and then I will do one subsequent each time. The first one is supposed to come out June 8th, and I'm not sure about that one because when I contacted Kindle, they said, well, we're not going to launch for a few months. So when I submitted it, it said mine would actually be published on June 8th. So we'll see how that works. But you mentioned something that's good news for readers, and that is that the Kindle app can be downloaded for free on an iPad or an iPhone. So, that's the good news there.
Yeah. So this is really exciting. And what about in terms of any editing or any other services? Did Amazon offer anything, or they just accept the submission as you presented it?
Yes, they just accept it as it is presented. And I had a little bit of a learning curve on the first submission because it said submit in plain text. Well, I submitted in Word. Well, when you do that, sometimes things get wonky as it appears. So, but now I'm going to be submitting on text, plain text from this on out. The good news for readers too is that the first 3 episodes of every Kindle Vella is free. So readers can get an idea, do they really want to continue to use tokens to buy the subsequent episodes?
And how will they publicize or notify readers about your book coming out?
That was a question that I asked them that they didn't answer directly. So I'm assuming that when they get ready to launch, the news will be big. They will probably be sending out emails to anybody that's ever subscribed to a Kindle or has any Amazon account or whatever. And that's how I heard about it, is because my first book is on Amazon. So I got news of this Kindle Vella possibility.
You can go to Kindle Vella and there will be like genres. And
Yes.
so people can say if they're really interested in young adult fiction, they can go there and look at the
Yes.
books that are available and find you there. If they're interested in mysteries, they can go to the mystery genre.
Correct.
So good. Well, I hope that you will update us as to what the experience is like after it's up and running. So maybe we can check back with you in the fall.
Oh, I'd like that. That'd be nice. That'd be
Great.
nice.
Well, Mary, good luck to you and Janie with Kindle Vella. And we will want to follow up with you and find out the experience, how it was for you. We'll also be announcing it in the WordFest newsletter that comes out when it's available. Okay, so
Okay.
keep us informed. Okay.
Thank you, Alan, and thank you, Vicki. Appreciate the time.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi, PJ. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Hi.
Hey, you have brought out your second mystery now. Rembrandt rides a bike, and we'll get into that for a moment. But first, tell us, how did you go from being a medical doctor, an internist, to becoming a mystery writer?
I have always enjoyed writing. When I think back, I have been writing since I was in grade school. I ended up being the editor of our grade school newsletter and then our 7th grade newsletter.
Your grade school had a newsletter. Now that's impressive.
Yeah, back in the old days when we used the old mimeograph machines. And then I used to journal regularly. In fact, I still do. And I had gone on vacation to the Caribbean and I was just writing about my trip. And this journal article just started turning into a book. And the next thing I knew, I was writing a book. And because of a medical background, I had to work a medical mystery into it. And then the first book sat there for years. I finally published it, self-published, after I learned about that, because I had promised my father I would get it published. Unfortunately, he died before I published it, but I did get it done. And then after I wrote the first one, it just felt like I had to write a second one. So I did.
So you created Julia Fairchild, who is an MD. Is she a projection of you?
She would be a younger, braver version of myself.
Okay, great. Tell us about your first book with Julia.
That's Blind Fish Don't Talk. And it started with Julia going on vacation to St. Martin, which I had really done. And the first part of the book is true, going to this hotel that was not exactly the hotel I was expecting. And then I just sort of started building in things, and I had her find a dead scuba diver. And then I had to figure out the rest of the book from there.
Right, good. What about the new book, Rembrandt Rides a Bike?
Now, this book grew out of a combination of things. I started writing it during the NaNoWriMo, which I actually heard about from you originally, Alan, at an old WordFest. And I had this idea about art being stolen from art galleries many years ago when I was on a vacation in Germany. And then I had a couple of dreams about this orange truck, this big orange truck that I was following going up to Port Townsend. And I thought, well, I didn't know what it meant, but I thought, you want to be in a book. And then I have done a number of tap dance cruises on cruise ships. And when my husband and I went on a Viking River cruise, I just sort of combined the idea of doing a tap dance land tour with art heists, and then threw in an orange truck. And it became Rembrandt Rides a Bike.
I see, right. Did you always know that you wanted to deal in mysteries, or were there other genres that you've written a lot throughout your life?
Always mysteries. I grew up reading Nancy Drew and Trixie Belden and Agatha Christie, and I just can't imagine writing anything else. I toyed with the idea of doing like a young adult novel, and maybe I'll do a young adult mystery series down the road. But that just didn't appeal to me. I can't do science fiction. I can't do fantasy. It just doesn't appeal to me.
Can you tell us the significance of the title, or does that give too much away?
Well, no. There's art heists involved in the book, and Charles mentions at one point that he would love to own a real Rembrandt, a line drawing or something like that. And there are a million bikes in Amsterdam. The story ends in Amsterdam, and everybody rides a bike, and they're everywhere. And there is a place where there's a guy on a bike with a package, and that becomes one of the clues to what's going on.
Great. Okay, well, thank you, PJ. Congratulations on your second book. Do you have another one in the offing?
I do. I have another one. It's called Pickled Pink in Paris.
Okay.
And it's right now in the hands of my editor. I'm hoping to release that one definitely later this year, maybe late summer or fall, depends on when Carol gets done with the editing, and then I have to do some more revising, and then we'll get that out for the real world.
Okay. Well, again, congratulations, and I'm glad that you are fulfilling a dream and writing your mysteries.
Oh, thank you so much. It is a lot of fun.
Take care. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Don. Thanks for coming to us from Vancouver today.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Right. Don, you are a writer, an editor, a development consultant, and you're also a poet. And today I'd like to really focus on you as the poet who spent much of his life in the Himalayas, in Nepal, Bhutan, and Pakistan. Can you tell us a little bit about your career in the Himalayas?
I started out as a Peace Corps volunteer in 1963 in Nepal doing rural community development. And I no sooner got there than I realized that there's a lot of challenge and a lot of fodder for writing. I'd done some writing as a youth in Alaska and published a few adventure stories, all nonfiction. And now in Nepal, I saw a lot more of that possibilities and did a lot of writing in Nepal. After I got my PhD in anthropology in 1970 from the University of Oregon, I went back to Nepal and did a lot of development work in the villages, more professionally than the Peace Corps. And I had a lot of time to write, and I published lots of articles and several books at that time.
Mhm, mhm. What type of development work did you do in Nepal?
I worked in rural community development. The most work that I did was in what's called community forestry. I'm not a forester, but as a social scientist, I know how to work with community groups, and the communities in Nepal manage their small forests. Forests are vital to survival in the rural areas for firewood, fuel, fodder for animals, and the like. So I did a lot of community forestry, working with community groups. I did some teaching in the university, teaching research methods and development methods, and irrigation and agriculture also, but mostly forestry, community forestry, or sometimes called social forestry.
Great. You also speak the language, know the history, has spent much time with the people, and from that, you have developed a number of poems about the place and the people. Would you share one with us?
On the road past Trimsing Law, Bhutan's wild mountain spirits, also called Dochen's Foggies. Many, many foggies says my driver, grinning, as we enter soup-thick cloud along the bluff below the pass called Trimsing Law. Dochin has that way of speaking English laughingly, so jovially therapeutic. He sets the tone for what's an otherwise long, rough mountain ride. Across Bhutan, up, down, around the twisting road, sometimes dull and foggy, but in clear sun the view is bold, with naked cliffs streaked white by mountain freshets tumbling sheer from secret groves above, where jade green moss, gray lichen, and long strands of mist lie still, whispering, if you listen, with startling clarity from nature's pure primeval soul. Surely, kindly ghosts inhabit this ancient sacred land, and sometimes while traversing east across the Royal Road, each turn, each vista, is ablaze with rhododendron, scarlet, pink, yellow, mauve, and ivory magnolia, and birds on iridescent wing flit and fidget across the broad carpet of shockingly bright spring blossoms. Their radiant colors and resonant songs pierce the green, dark forest. And sometimes the sky comes down to touch the earth and pastures high up, where yak graze and wild boar uproot the fields in bright daylight, where leopard and rare tiger roam stealthily at dusk, where snow lays close in woodland nullahs long into May, where cypress, fir, and larch stand tall and sharp against a cobalt sky, where blood pheasant, red panda, and muntjac feed passively, unseen, unheard, in dense thickets, where prayer flags silently mark and bless one's passage in the dark, while mountain breezes waft brusquely unchecked to bend the treetops, and dark clouded storms roil up to dare a blood-red sunset. It seems so far, this wild, untrammeled land, so far from din of hectic world and troubled age. And when, along the road past Trumsing Law, great banks of cloud obscure it all, then wild mountain spirits cling tightly to the cliff's bare face. Dochin's Foggies.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. You certainly capture the land and the beauty of it. And we are also grateful for some of your photos that you've given us to help us better appreciate the beauty of the Himalayas. Would you like to read another poem?
Yeah, I have a couple I could pick from. Let me pull one out of the book. In going through my poems recently, I realized that I'm attracted by the weather, particularly when it rains and storms. Here's one called Flash Flood. It comes in a fury in a thunderclap, foaming, frothing, roaring at breakneck speed. Nothing's spared. It goes in a flash, leaving little in its wake, but man and nature belittled by its sudden impulse. With the earth skinned bare, sullen, silent, brooding, dark and still like the night. Here's another one. It's also about a storm. She sulks in her sleep, the rain, and laps and sighs as if she needs the rest, then awakens to rant and rave in the morning, lashing the mountainside farms and fields to plow. And now, with miles to trek, ill-clad for her, we venture out on muddy trails, content only in knowing the warmth and comfort and good company await our return.
Okay. Thank you, Don. Thank you for sharing those poems from a very rich and long career in the Himalayas. You may be envious, you know, that Nepal is one of the places that I've always wanted to go to. So thank you for sharing.
Let's go.
We'll see you. Bye now.
Okay, thanks, Alan.
We want to thank Mary Stone, PJ Peterson, and Don Messerschmidt for sharing their voices with us today on WordFest. On behalf of our director, Vicki J. Carter, and editor, Bethany Glenn, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next month.